Welcome to the Sultanate of Oman Television Tonight News. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of condolences to President of the United States of America on the victims of the Hurricane Ida. His Highness the Deputy Prime Minister for Defense Affairs receives an official invitation from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum to attend the activities of the 17th Dubai Air Show 2021. Within the program to bring private investments to the food security sector in the Sultanate, a food security laboratory is launched. And the Ministry of Health reports 5 deaths and 202 new cases of COVID-19 in the Sultanate during the last 3 days. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of condolences to His Excellency President Joe Biden of the United States of America on the victims of the Hurricane Ida that hit the east coast of the state. His Majesty the Sultan received a cabal of thanks from His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, Emir of Kuwait, in reply to a cabal of condolences sent by His Majesty the Sultan on the death of Sheikh Ali Fahad Al Salim Al Mubarak Al Sabah. His Highness Sayyid Shihab bin Tariq Al Saeed, Deputy Prime Minister for the Defense Affairs, received an official invitation from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, Vice President of the United Arab Emirates, Prime Minister, Minister of Defense and ruler of Dubai, to attend the activities of the Dubai Air Show 2021 in its 17th session. The official invitation was received by His Excellency Dr. Mohammed bin Nasser Al Zaabi, Secretary General of the Ministry of Defense, when he received in his office His Excellency Mohammed bin Sultan Al Suwaidi, the United Arab Emirates ambassador accredited to the Sultanate. During the meeting, the good relations between the two countries were also reviewed and views were exchanged on matters of common interest. His Excellency General Sultan bin Mohammed Al No'mani, Minister of the Royal Office, received in his office today His Excellency Hamish Coyle, the United Kingdom's ambassador accredited to the Sultanate, to bid him farewell at the end of his tour of duty as his country's ambassador to the Sultanate. During the meeting, His Excellency the Minister of the Royal Office welcomed the guest and expressed his utmost thanks to the ambassador for the efforts he exerted in serving the relations between the two countries, wishing him permanent success. For his part, the ambassador expressed his appreciation for the cooperation he received from all officials in the Sultanate, praising the strength of the historical bilateral relations that bind the two friendly countries. The food security laboratory comes within the program to bring private investments to the food security sector in the Sultanate and support Omani exports in foreign markets. More details in this coming report. Today, the Food Security Laboratory, which represents one of the national programs of Oman's 2040 vision, comes within the program to bring private investments to the Sultanate and support Omani exports in foreign market invest in Oman. The laboratory, which is under the Ministry of Agriculture, Wealth, Fisheries and Water Resources, and with the support of the follow-up unit for the implementation of Oman Vision 2040, the laboratory aims to design an investments program for the food security sector in the Sultanate at the strategic level in partnership with relevant institutions, businessmen and investors, and will focus on the main activities of agriculture, fish and livestock, wealth, water resources, food safety and quality.
The issue of food security in Oman is very critical. Actually, we depend on importing most of the goods from overseas for a long time. But now I think it's the time to start to build up our own food security systems in Oman, and we already started, hoping that the food security can be achieved in Oman. All agriculture commodities can be grown in Oman. Let's talk about the fisheries, livestock, and fruits, vegetables. Most of them can be grown in Oman. And by little help from the government and pushing up all those small projects, we can achieve the food security program very soon, inshallah.
The laboratory will also be based on 3 axes, including projects and investments opportunities, enabling projects and opportunities, and the incentive package, in addition to a number of possibilities that include building national capacities, employment, developing legislation and regulations, media communication, governorate development, simplifying and digitizing government services, planning and developing investments tools, and opening markets. The follow-up unit for the implementation of Oman Vision 2040 employs a set of tools to facilitate the implementation of the requirements of the vision, including development workshop, sectoral laboratories, in addition to a knowledge transfer program that will contribute to ensuring work with an advanced level of expertise and skills, and standardizing work mechanisms for the authorities concerned with the implementing the future vision. Now, the Ministry of Health announced 5 deaths, 202 new cases of COVID-19 and 392 recovered cases in the Sultanate in the last 3 days. The ministry also reported that the total number of COVID-19 cases registered in the Sultanate reached 302,668, while the total number of deaths reached 4,077. The total recovered cases reached 292,573. The ministry indicated that the number of inpatients in the Sultanate hospitals reached 97, of which 39 are in intensive care units around healthcare institutions in the country. According to doctors and data analysts, the Sultanate is expected to see a drop in COVID-19 cases in September after a rapid pace of national vaccination drive, and new variants are of no high consequences. A data expert said new cases registered in the Sultanate will fall by 50 to 100 cases per day, with the immunization rate increasing from 70% to 90% during the same month, after analyzing the statistical trend of coronavirus infections. He predicted that the total number of COVID-19 inpatients in hospitals will drop to 80 inpatients in intensive care units to 40, and that the number of those daily admissions to 5 to 15 cases based on statistical models. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Health urges people to stick to precautionaries like making sure that mask is there, vaccination and social distancing to control the spread of virus, as the Sultanate returned to normalcy last week with mandatory vaccination for entry into government and private establishments and lifting of the travel ban. The Telecommunications Regulatory Authority reviewed the visions of a number of members of the state and shura councils regarding the draft of the regulations of communication services beneficiaries' rights during a discussion sessions organized by the authority. More details in this report. Based on the role of the Council of Oman in consolidating the principle of participation in issues of public concern and building the foundations of societal and institutional partnership, the Telecommunications Regulatory Authority hosted a number of honored members of the State Council and their excellencies members of the Shura Council for the purpose of obtaining their views on the draft regulation of the affairs of users of telecommunication services. This is within the framework of participation in the formulation of legislative and regulatory frameworks that take into account the interest of the beneficiaries and enhance their confidence in the services provided in the sector. The regulation aims to regulate the relationship between beneficiaries and telecommunication services providers by raising awareness of their rights and obligations, as well as strengthening the supervisory role over telecommunication services provided to beneficiaries. The regulation represents an effective step towards ensuring the telecommunication services providers adhere to the standards set by the Telecommunications Regulatory Authority to protect the rights of users in order to enhance competition between service providers in improving and raising standards related to service users and guaranteeing their rights.
Consumer protection regulation is a new regulation in the market. We hope or we aim with this regulation to protect consumer rights, to identify as well both parties' obligation, the consumer and the operators as well. We hope with this regulation everything will be clear for all stakeholders in the market. The plan after the public consultation that we are going to analyze the response, and then we will going to amend the regulation accordingly. We hope to end by the end of November or beginning of December, inshallah, and then we'll process it with the Ministry of Legal Affairs.
A summary of many studies conducted by the authority comparing a number of legislations and international best practices of some other countries. You are with the Sultanate of Oman television, and yet to come in our news bulletin. Amid severe fuel shortages, Lebanese villagers are turning to firewood, using its heat to cook and bake their food. Once again, welcome to the Sultanate of Oman television. The Admission Center at the Ministry of Higher Education, Scientific Research and Innovation announced the result of the first sorting of the academic year 2021-2022. The number of the accepted students reached 27,074 male and female students. The percentage of the occupied seats reached 81.8% of the total seats available. The number of students accepted in government higher education institutions reached 16,768. Meanwhile, the internal scholarship seats in private higher education institutions reached 8,585. The external scholarships reached 402. The internal scholarships provided by the private sector for studying in private education institutions inside the Sultanate, 1,719. The center called on the students on the necessity to complete the admission procedures in the institutions where they were accepted starting from tomorrow, Monday, the 6th until the 12th of September 2021. We are, of course, wishing them all the best, all the students throughout the Sultanate. The Ministry of Transport, Communications and Information Technology revealed that the first phase of the expansion of a Rusail Bid dual carriageway project has reached 20%. More details coming up in this report.
The expansion of the Rusail Bid dual carriageway road project phase 1 is progressing at an accelerated pace. This road project is part of the strategic development endeavors of the Ministry of Transport, Communications and Information Technology to ease traffic between the Governorate of Muscat and other governorates of the Sultanate. The road begins at Rusail Nizwa Junction along Muscat Expressway and ends at the Asharqiyya Expressway Junction in the Wilaya of Bidbid. So far, 20% of the first phase of this dual carriageway project has been completed.
Project of construction third and fourth line on Rusail Bid project. Is the important project implemented by ministry. The project started from Muscat Interchange Highway to Asharqiyya Interchange Highway. The length of project is 27 kilometers. The scope of work is included additional of 2 lines in both sides of the project in the existing road, including of interchange and Wadi bridges also. The progress is achieved as per the progress plan, 20% of the work.
The project follows the highest traffic specifications and standards. The newly added lanes are designed to lead to interchanges, roundabouts, and exits. The road will see the construction of modern energy-saving lighting poles. It will also include concrete protective barriers, protective iron fences, warning signboards, informative signboards, and pavement floor painting.
Enhancing the efficiency of this vital road will not only facilitate smooth traffic flow, but will also contribute to boosting sustainable development projects in all governorates around the country. From the Wilaya of Bidbid, Saleh Bakhalfan al-Rahbi, Al-Dakhiliya Governorate.
Now, all the way to UK. The UK is to introduce coronavirus vaccine passports at major venues later this month to ensure the British economy remains open. Vaccine Minister Nadeem Zahawi told media that, and here he is.
By the end of September, when everyone has had the opportunity to be fully vaccinated for the large venues that could end up causing a real spike in infections, where we need to use the certification process. And if you look at what the FA have done so brilliantly in terms of checking vaccine status to reopen football, that is the sort of right thing to do. I, as does the Prime Minister, want to make sure the whole economy remains open. The worst thing we can do for those venues is to have a sort of open shut strategy. The JCVI, if you read their advice, on balance, it is marginally more beneficial to vaccinate 12 to 15-year-olds, healthy 12 to 15-year-olds is what they said, but not enough for them to recommend a national vaccination program. We have not made any decisions, so we haven't, to your question, decided not to listen to the experts. On the contrary, all four ministers, so the Secretary of State, Sajid Javid, and his fellow ministers in the devolved administrations have agreed to ask the chief medical officers to convene expert groups, including the JCVI being in that, to be able to recommend which way we should go.
That was UK Vaccine Minister Nadeem Zahawi. Lebanon's economic crisis has been described by the World Bank as one of the most severe the world has witnessed since the 1850s. Amid severe fuel shortages, Lebanese villagers are turning to firewood, using its heat to cook and bake their food. Here is a report by Sausan bint Ali As-Suleymaniya.
Lebanon villagers turn to firewood amid fuel crisis. After finding himself low on money and gas, Lebanese villager Qusay al-Babu resorted to firewood. Amid severe shortages of gasoline and diesel, he and his family started collecting wood from their surrounding area. They even built their own wood-fired oven that they used to bake homemade bread. There is no diesel, no gas, nothing. We went back to the days of our grandparents, baking with firewood, Al-Babu said. The family now uses wood for 90% of their cooking needs, helping them cut down costs since the cooking gas has become too expensive and hard to find. Lebanon is witnessing an economic crisis described as one of the world's worst since the 1850s. The results include crippling power cuts and severe shortages of gasoline and diesel that have been blamed on smuggling, hoarding, and the cash-strapped government's inability to secure deliveries of oil products. Amid the fuel crisis, many residents of the southern village of Qali'a have turned to firewood. It is like we're going back to the 1920s, says one man. But with little money, this is what villagers do to survive the crisis. The Lebanese crisis has led to a dramatic currency crash and hyperinflation, plunging more than half of the country's population below the poverty line. The fuel crisis in Lebanon deteriorated dramatically in recent weeks after the central bank decided to end subsidies for fuel products, a decision that will likely lead to price hikes of almost all commodities in Lebanon, already in the throes of soaring poverty.
Thank you, Sasan there. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of condolences to President of the United States of America and the victims of the Hurricane Ida. His Highness the Deputy Prime Minister for Defense Affairs receives an official invitation from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum to attend the activities of the 17th Dubai Air Show 2021. Within the program to bring private investments to the food security sector in the Sultanate, a food security laboratory is launched. And the Ministry of Health reports 5 deaths and 202 new cases of COVID-19 in the Sultanate during the last 3 days. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin brought to you live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television. Remember to follow the precautionary measures. Let's all be united to stick to the precautionary measures. And if you haven't taken your vaccine, continue, move forward and get that vaccine. Stay safe and good night.